with one part of his soul, he was tied to this earth. With the other part of his soul, he was related to God, so that he could know God. And when he saw the starry heavens and the beautiful constellations, and when he saw the trees and the flowers and named the animals, he could see God, God as the Creator, God's power, God's great glory, God's sovereignty, and he could live in a relationship with God of fellowship. That was his spirit. That wasn't true of any other creature. A dog can't live in a relationship with God. An oak tree can't either. Only man. Because he had that part of his soul that connected him with spiritual things and heavenly things. Now when the apostle says here that the work of sanctification, that is our responsibility, involves cleansing ourselves of the flesh and spirit, it means that on the one hand, man, when he fell, and you and I in particular, as children of Adam, standing in the midst of God's creation, are corrupt and depraved in every respect. We are flesh. That is, well, it means all sorts of things, but above all it means this: that the creation about us is no more recognized by us as God's world, but in the wretched pride of our hearts we think it's there for us. And not only there for us, but for our enjoyment, for our benefit, and given to us is the freedom to use God's world the way we want. And that's under the instigation and control, of course, of Satan. Because Satan, when he was cast out of heaven, determined if he could not make heaven his kingdom, he would make this world his kingdom. And he persuaded man to throw in his abilities in pursuing the goals of the evil one. And Satan, in his efforts to make this whole creation his instead of God's, to use as his kingdom over which he would rule to accomplish his own nefarious purposes, promises man that if man will cooperate with him, man will be given the freest of the creation to use it in every way he pleases, all of which ways are sinful, because they are cooperation with Satan, because they are part of the corruption that resulted from Adam's fall. But that corruption of the flesh, of the body, and of our minds, and of our wills, necessarily affects our relationship to God. That is involved in the fact that we have a spirit. Even totally depraved men have a spirit. They do. And because they have a spirit, they know God, who He is. They know that He created all things. They know that He must be worshipped and served. But they won't do it. And in fact, they not simply say to God, no, we don't want any part of your demands placed upon us. We hate you. That's not too strong a word. That's depravity. We hate you. We're going to do everything to destroy you. We're going to cooperate with the devil to the utmost of our ability in making this creation the kingdom of Satan, the fallen angel. And so their wickedness is brutal, fierce, and unrelenting. Their whole life is absorbed in attaining the promises that Satan has whispered in their ears. You will be like God, knowing good and evil. But you see, the apostle is saying, if that is the relationship, the ethical relationship in which you stand to God's world, that is going to affect the relationship in which you stand to God. You become His enemy, hateful of Him, earnestly desirous to drive Him out of His own world, doing all in your power to cooperate with Satan. On the other hand, of course, if we are sons and daughters of God and we cleanse, we sanctify our flesh and spirit, then it means that we break that relationship with the world into which we were born, and that we break it consciously and deliberately and thoughtfully and with all our effort to restore our relationship to God as one of fellowship and communion and joyful service of the Most High. Now, I am the first one to admit that that's not so easy to do, of course. I don't mean now impossible to do because we are totally depraved sinners, but not very easy to do even when we are sanctified sons and daughters of God, as we confess we are. It's extraordinarily difficult. It means a total change of our perspective in our relationship to the creation. It means that we consider this world God's world that must be used to the glory of God's name. It means that in this world we have nothing that we can call our own. All is God's. All is upheld by His providence. All takes place not by chance, but by the will of our Father, who has made us His children. It means that the world is not here for our own personal satisfaction. It means that our calling in this world is not to seek the things of this world, to satisfy our own pleasures and the lusts of our own flesh. It means that we don't have our own way. We don't want our own way. It isn't our business to do with this world which belongs to God and with which God will accomplish His purpose. We are humble servants of God in God's world, His children. But it also means, therefore, that we rid our minds and our wills and our bodies of all the corruption that surrounds us. And I say that's difficult, indescribably difficult. Difficult, first of all, of course, because there's the world around us, alluring, tempting, giving all kinds of promises, saying to us, riches are what count. And the more riches you acquire for yourself, the happier you will be, which Jesus in the parable of the 4 kinds of soil calls the deceitfulness of riches that promise pleasure and never bring them.